Are we ready to start? Yeah. All right, well, welcome to the 2014 Daily Cal ASUC Candidates Forum. We got a big week next week with voting, so I think this is the right way to kick it off. So basically, I'm Jeremy Gordon, the opinion editor at the Daily Cal, and I'll be moderating the event today. Let's start with a few ground rules. So the way it's going to work, the order is we're going to do the ballot measure first, the student technology fee referendum, and we'll have some people telling you about that and answering a couple questions, and then we'll go into the candidates. So we'll start with the student advocate position, and that we'll get 2 questions, and then we'll move through AAVP, EAVP, EVP, and then president. And basically, I want you to make sure you hold your applause or any loud noise making till the end after all the candidates have answered the questions, and just keep the noise making to a minimum. It's distracting and it makes the candidates nervous, and it's kind of unfair to be really loud. So just make sure that you're being cordial and you're making sure that you're not stressing anyone out too much. To the candidates, when you're done answering your questions, please head outside through that right back door, so you're left if you're facing this way. And okay. Actually, over here now, our photo editor, Michael Drummond, will take your portrait photo for our endorsements page. So don't forget to do that. And then also, so the way it's going to work is for all positions except president, you'll have 2 questions. The presidents will have 4 questions each. And it'll be that each person will have an opportunity to answer each question, and then we'll switch up the order of how that goes. And if you are kind of called out in someone else's answer, I'll give you a chance to make a rebuttal. However, I'll be giving out rebuttals at my discretion, so if I think that someone else's answer warrants a response from you, you'll have 1 minute to do that, and usually you'll have 2 minutes to answer the questions. So why don't we get started? Cassie will be talking about the student technology fee referendum.
My name is Cassie. I'll be talking about the student technology fee referendum. So the student technology fee will be used for software packages like Microsoft Office and Adobe Creative Cloud. And in addition, a portion of the fee will actually go towards technology initiatives on campus. So our current contracts with Adobe and Microsoft are expiring this August, and they will not be renewed unless this fee is implemented. Therefore, if you use the software after August, it's actually breaking the terms of the contract, therefore it would be illegal. So in addition to providing software, a portion of the fee actually goes towards student technology projects on campus. And what's going to happen is student groups and campus departments can actually submit proposals for technology projects that they want to see implemented. And these projects could range from funding for student-developed applications, to subsidized printing, to MATLAB licenses, to even laptop and phone charging stations around campus. And if the fee passes, a student majority committee will be formed, and they'll review these proposals, and they'll use it for technology projects that they think are beneficial for students. So the fee is $51 per semester, and the breakdown is that $17 actually goes to return to aid, so it's going to financial aid. Up to $20 will be used for software packages, and the remainder, which is $14 and up, will be used for these technology projects. So this fee is very flexible in that it's going to be used for student projects that students propose, and it's also students who are reviewing these proposals and deciding where the money goes. Any additional information, including a list of universities that have a similar fee, to download statistics, to even FAQs, that can all be found at studenttechfee.wordpress.com. Thank you.
So now we have a little bit of time for a couple questions if anyone has a question that you would like Cassie to answer about the fee referendum.
Can you elaborate more about the student initiatives? Like you said that some of the money will be for software and the rest will be for initiatives on campus. Like what are you looking to change or like?
All right. So the vision for this is essentially multiple technology projects that we can have on campus. So I know some departments might need funding. For example, this is just a random example, architecture might need 3D printing services, or the engineering department might want to get MATLAB licenses for all their students. So the idea is to kind of address all these technology needs on campus and just kind of improve the student technology experience overall. I don't know if that addresses your question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're actually going to go to AAVP instead of student advocate because we only have one person for that position here right now. So why don't you come up here? You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Introduce yourself. Tell us what party you're from, and then AAVP. Yeah, is that AAVP? Sorry. What? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So introduce yourself, and then I'll ask you a question.
Hi, I'm Allison McDonald. I'm a second year and I'm running for AAVP and Senate.
Who's your party?
My party is DAP, the Defend Affirmative Action Party. We're running to double minority enrollment and get Jenny Napolitano out of office and a lot of other things.
So your first question is, what do you plan to do to foster the right balance between competitiveness and collaboration among students?
I think that I can do a lot of things to do that. I think that, first of all, it's already really competitive here at Cal, just based on the requirements to get into this school. But I think what we really need to do is to make it easier for students to have control of their own education. So I think that we need to have things like libraries open all night or later drop dates so students have full power over what they're learning here and the school. Yeah. So I think it's less of, I think the balance is already in favor of competition at this point, so I think we need to swing it back a little bit if we're going to.
And your second question is, maybe we won't use the mic. Yeah, I don't think we really need it. Okay, and the second question is, the AAVP is responsible for the ASUC's relationship with the Academic Senate. What aspects of the ASUC's current relationship with the Academic Senate do you think need to change, and what should that relationship look like?
I don't know personally because I'm not intimately involved with the relationship between the Academic Senate and the, but I do think that the relationship should look like something that listens to the student's voice and gives the student movement power. I think that students need to be able to, there needs to be transparency in that process. So we need to be able to, as a body, say what we're looking for from our government and yeah, I think there should be more of a platform for students to be able to have influence on those things, not just people who are elected. I think students need to be able to be part of that process.
Okay, great. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. That's fine. All right, so now we will go on to student advocate. Why don't the candidates come forward?
Hello everyone, my name is Rishi Ahuja. I'm a third-year student here at Cal, and I'm running as an independent candidate for the ASUC student advocate position.
Hello everyone, my name is Saeed Masavi. I am a junior transfer here at Cal and I'm running for DAP for the student advocate position.
Okay, so Rishi, why don't you answer the first question first, and then also Sarah Burns right here, raise your hand. she'll give you time signals. So it's 1 minute remaining, 30 seconds, and then 15 seconds, and then count down on fingers from 10. So your first question is, sexual assault on college campuses, including UC Berkeley, has been called an epidemic. Do you think that the Student Advocate's Office is at all to blame for not sounding the alarm about the issue earlier?
So I would absolutely say that as a part of student government, our job is to raise issues that come to the forefront of our attention as soon as we can. And over this past year, as cases started to come in and we started handling cases, we saw and started to really understand that our university was not handling sexual violence cases appropriately. And over the course of this last year, as we saw this issue develop, it became immediately apparent that we needed to do a better job of raising this to the forefront as an issue. So first, I think absolutely, ourselves and every part of our student government was not active enough in raising this as an issue. But I will say that over the course of this year, this has been something we've devoted every single waking hour to. And it's resulted in tangible results. I've had the pleasure of working with some amazing survivors that have really advocated and helped push us and the rest of the student government to really work towards this as a crucial issue, as a campus safety issue, and in terms of improving student life and experience overall. And student activism and our collaboration has resulted in some real important changes. First, working with the university, we've created a survivor resource website that is now going to be a really useful tool to survivors moving forward. That gives them information on how to report, when to report, and every single right they have in the process. Second, we worked with the UC system to change our university's policies around sexual violence and assault. And this has resulted in crucial changes to the procedures that are now much more fair to survivors and are now in compliance with federal laws and regulations. Second, our university itself has changed its conduct processes to make sure that it's fair and accurate for survivors in the process. And last, our university has now pledged to hire 3 new positions to help the process, including, most importantly, an advocate that's going to guide survivors through every single step of the process, through their interaction with the police, through their interaction with the conduct process, and through their interaction with the Berkeley system. So, absolutely. We could have done a better job of raising this as an alarm earlier. Sorry.
Thank you. Did you see the hand signals?
I didn't, but that's
Okay. For next time.
no worries.
Yeah, make sure to look at Sarah here. She'll be giving you the hand signals. So once again, it's 1 minute remaining, 30 seconds remaining, 15 seconds remaining, and then count down from 10 for 10 seconds. So make sure to look at her. Yeah, and also speak as loudly as possible. Do you need me to repeat the question? Okay.
Well, could you just remind me?
Yeah, I'll reread it. Sexual assault on college campuses, including UC Berkeley, has been called an epidemic. Do you think the Student Advocate's Office is at all to blame for not sounding the alarm on the issue earlier?
Absolutely. I'm going to speak to you from my personal experience. I am a survivor of sexual assault. I know friends who are survivors of sexual assault. We're not going to deal with this if we sit behind a desk and wait for people to file these claims. It's not going to happen. It took me a long time to get over this and to open up about this. It takes a long time for my friends to come to me and open up about this. One way to do this is to break this notion that we should work with this administration, that we should work behind a desk. You need to put yourself out there and realize that these women, that these people, they're vulnerable. They don't know how to convey themselves. They can't be expected to just wait and approach someone who's part of the administration just to be rejected. That's what happened to these women. They were rejected. Their scholarships were revoked. They were threatened with having to withdraw. That's not acceptable. This is counter to what should be fostered at this university. We need to go out there and reach out to these people, and I've already started doing that. One way that I would like to test this administration is to shake things up. I don't hate the administration. I would like to work independently of it in order to test it to see if it actually supports us. Women like me have been denied a voice. That's not fair. That absolutely is unfair. We cannot continue working with an administration that denies us our voice. So we need to work independently of it and organize. That's what we need to do. And I've already put my story out, and so many women have come up and they've thanked me for this. I really, really appreciate that, and I think this is how it's going to work.
the second question, Saida, let's start with you. What further changes, if any, do you think should be made to the Student Code of Conduct and conduct violations process?
Again, unfortunately, the Student Code of Conduct is too tied to the administration. We've done everything we possibly can. The women have come forward. They've gone to the student advocate's office. Our graduate students have worked with this administration. They've denied us our voices. They've denied us rights that have already been guaranteed to us by the Constitution, by other laws that have already been passed. We've done everything we can to cultivate the integrity of this institution, everything we can to cultivate the intellectual environment on this institution. We do whatever we can to try to minimize the hostility that occurs on this campus. We've done whatever we can, but our voices again have been rejected because we've been working with an administration that just doesn't seem to care. Again, in order to test this administration, we need to break away, right? We need to be able to realize that the Student Code of Conduct puts an overburdensome amount of responsibility on us students, and we realize our responsibilities. The Code of Conduct almost seems like it's a testament to the fact that we have the responsibility for this campus. And we take care of it, but they don't care. When we approach them, we need to create a distance, just to test them, to see where they stand, if they support us or if they're against us.
Please keep the applause till the end, till they have both answered, just so it's polite and, under control. All right, very good. Do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
So there are a variety of current improvements that we can make on our code of conduct to ensure that it is much more efficacious, efficient, and fair to students going through the process. One issue right now is the flexibility in terms of the timeline that the university has to go through when these conduct charges are brought against the student. Right now, the barrier to getting an extension on that timeline for the administration, I believe, is a little too loose and gives a little too much discretion to the university to postpone the timeline for a student going through the process. So one change that I think really needs to be looked at and evaluated very carefully is ensuring that we stick very closely to the timelines that are laid out in the code to ensure that students are able to go through the process at an efficient pace and that their issue is resolved quickly and fairly to the students going through it. Another issue that I would like to raise today is in terms of the new policy that was written in terms of sexual violence and assault, which is a part of our code of conduct in terms of our investigation process. One issue in that code right now is that when the decision is appealed, it gives a little too much latitude for the administration to basically ignore that appeal when it's filed at the highest level. And that's an issue we're still working to really address and needs to be addressed currently. Lastly, I would say in the code of conduct, and this less to do with actual code, but more in terms of process by which we're adjudicating these cases, we need to do a better job of making sure that students know the resources on campus they can go to, such as if they want to go seek counseling services, if they want to go speak with advisors, if they want to go seek help in any way. Our initial process should be one in which make sure the students know that they have resources available, that we're not here to prosecute them, but that we're actually trying to make sure that everyone learns from this process. And making that transition and continuing toward an educational process is very crucial. Thank you.
All right, now we'll have the EAVP candidates come up. No, we're not doing questions, sorry. Yeah.
Go Gabby, go Dab. I see you, Caitlin. I see you, kid. He has a big jigger.
All right, we're going to try the microphone again because some people in the back can't hear. So if it's not working, then we'll just have them speak up. But hopefully this will be better. So why don't you all introduce yourselves, say what party you're from, like another sentence of whatever you want to say, and then we'll ask questions.
Good afternoon. My name is Nicholas Jaber. I'm a sophomore studying philosophy and Arabic, and I am running to be your next External Affairs Vice President. I stand as a very serious, pragmatic, and moderate choice in a race that is otherwise very polarizing and divisive. So I hope that you'll give it your consideration. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin Quinn and I'm running with CalSUC to be your next External Affairs Vice President.
keep it down, please. Be respectful. Be quiet.
Hi everyone, my name is Gabriela Padilla. I am a Latin American Studies and Geography double major, and I'm a sophomore, and I'm here running for AAVP.
All right, so Gabby, why don't you answer the first question first, and then Caitlin will answer, and then Nick will answer. The formation of a student district has been very contentious over the past few years. What would you do, if anything, to resolve some of the issues plaguing the process and ensure that a student is elected to the city council? Time will start when you're ready.
Okay, so the first and foremost important thing that everybody needs to know is that the students are what matters and what makes this campus. If we want somebody to be elected into the city council and to represent our entire population, we need to have the entire student body, if it needs be, to go and participate in a mass movement. Because if everybody were to go to the city council and stand in a protest in front of them, they would be forced to take into consideration and to actually place a student from our campus into their council. So we need to take massive action in order for someone to actually consider what a voice has to say or listen to us, because it takes more than just words. It takes more than just having documentation and making papers and signing, because it takes years for somebody or for something to go through legal process. And I'm not saying that we should be against that, but if we want a more direct, faster way for us to obtain a decision that we want in our part, it takes your voice and it takes your body to be there. And it's all about the students. So if you want a decision to come from you, then you need to take action.
Yeah.
Do you need me to repeat the question? Okay.
Hi again, my name is Caitlin Quinn and I'm running to be your next External Affairs Vice President with CalSTAR, CalSTAR Free Rights and About Education. The thing about redistricting is this whole time the process has not been transparent or accessible to the student body. I would gather that most of the people in this room right now don't even know that the city is literally suing itself over the process of redistricting, and that's coming out of taxpayer dollars, and that's going to affect the 2016 election. So going forward, it is extremely necessary that it not only seek input from all students and all types of student housing, but also from the other neighborhoods that are going to be affected by this. From my conversations with Berkeley neighborhood associations, a lot of them are fed up with the whole ASUC, not one party or another, not one faction or another. They are fed up with the ASUC and they are fed up with the city council, and as EAVP, I will work hard to fix those relationships. I already have those relationships. By solely focusing on redistricting, though, we do a huge disservice to all the work that can be done in the city of Berkeley. As EAVP, I will work with the Housing Advisory Commission and the Rent Stabilization Board to ensure that all students have access to good housing that is affordable, safe, and clean. There's so much more that the EAVP office could be doing for students' housing, and a lot of students live in soft-story buildings. I don't know if any of you do, but you are literally at risk for your life if there's an earthquake and if the house goes down. And these are little things, it seems like little things, but they literally make the difference in students' lives. And as EAVP, I will actively seek out the input of organizations that work to house students, such as Greek organizations, the Berkeley Student Cooperative, and make sure that students' voices are actually heard, whether or not we have a city council member, because one voice out of 9 is not going to be enough. Even if we get a student elected, which I do think we should, that will never be enough to counter the 8 other people who aren't students. So students need an EAVP who knows how to play city politics, not one who will be played by city politics. Thank you.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you.
Okay.
So I think a few things need to be made clear. First off, the city council has already passed our district map that the ASUC unanimously passed. And the reason it's being held up is because a group of students on campus has brought forth enough signatures to bring a referendum. So, as the AVP, I'm committed to hearing out all students. Personally, of course, I support bringing as many students into the district as possible. I don't want to leave anybody out. But I also recognize, and I think it's my pragmatic nature, I recognize the necessity in understanding the fact that we have the opportunity now to begin campaigning for and electing our student representative. The process is being held up, and I want to unite students behind the first district map that the ASUC unanimously passed and our city council passed. We have spent 4 years since the census in 2010 coming together as students to talk about this issue. And let me tell you, it was not easy for our past EAVPs, as I'm sure the other candidates know, to get as far as we have gotten. It's a travesty if we fail to recognize the opportunity that we have currently in front of us. So I plan, as your next EAVP, to unite students, to have a conversation, and to push students for and toward the first district map that we've already passed, and do ourselves justice. We have the ability, the opportunity, and indeed the duty to move forward with the already passed district map. And I will do that as your EAVP. Thank you.
Please hold applause until all the candidates have, oh, right. Never mind. Yeah. You listened to the rules, I didn't, so thank you everyone. All right, moving on to the next question. We will go in the order of Caitlin, then Nick, then Gabby for this one. So let's say the UC Board of Regents announces that tuition will be raised next year for all students. What would you do?
Once again, my name is Caitlin Quinn, and I'm running to be your next External Affairs Vice President with CalSIT, Cal Students Free Course and a Valid Education. One of the many things that we can do is hold President Napolitano accountable to her promises to be an advocate for all students. I want to validate students' concerns about her appointment process and her legitimacy as president and her history, but we can use her as a tool. She was brought in for her political prowess, supposedly, but she hasn't been using it for all students. She hasn't been using it to voice for lower tuition. She said she would get us a tuition freeze, but all that I've heard coming out of the meetings in the UC Regents is that they're going to raise tuition. The UC Students Association this year can be doing so much more to actually be a voice for students. Right now, UC Irvine just pulled out because of the weak leadership in the UC Student Association. As EAVP, I will work with the UC Student Association because I've already worked with the UC Student Association. I'm the only candidate on the stage who's worked with the UC Student Association. I'm the only person on the stage that won't need a learning curve for the EAVP office or for the UC Students Association. I will work with statewide coalitions that I already have to ensure that we can jump in and start during the summer and start demanding from the UC Regents instead of just going and talking to them behind closed doors. They need to listen to the UC, and they need to listen to us, and they need to listen to the UC Students Association, but we can only do that when the UC Students Association is being a proactive voice for students. Right now, the UC Student Association isn't even meeting its constitutionally required things to do just to function. It's not having caucuses for people of color, for queer people, for disabled people, for students of color at every meeting when it's supposed to be. And as EAVP, I will ensure that not only is UCSA doing what it's supposed to do, it's going to need to do so much more than it's supposed to do. So again, Caitlin Quinn for EAVP. Thank you.
So I too plan to, as the representative for our campus, work with UCSA to fight these supposed tuition hikes. But I'd like to address a few specific matters that Ms. Quinn brought up. Firstly, as a matter of experience, I spent 2 years on the ground in Sacramento as the single student on the legislative committee for the largest advocacy organization, non-union, in Sacramento. Spent 2 years looking at every piece of legislation that went through our legislator that had anything even vaguely to do with education. To stop thousands of bills. I know our policy. I know what it takes to lobby, and I know what it takes to advocate because I've done it more, I can guarantee, than anybody else on this stage. So I am committed to following through with my experience to let our students be heard, and I would not accept these tuition hikes. I think that goes without saying. You also brought up President Napolitano, and I'd like to address that issue. I also see our president as a very important resource. Now, I think what really separates me, however, is that I'm not connected to a party that has drawn a line in the sand and obviously prevented any even possible discourse between our students and the president. So if there's anybody on this stage that is committed to and doesn't have a record of already, drawing a line in the sand and, committing ourselves to non-discourse, it's me. I want to work with President Napolitano, not against her, and I fully intend to.
Wait, hold on. Give me the microphone. I just want to remind you and everyone else to respond to the question instead of what other candidates have said when they've been able to answer. All right, Gabby, are you ready? Do you need to repeat the question?
First of all, I would just like to remind everybody that Janet Napolitano has already violated the rights of a lot of students who are on this campus. Yeah. How many people do you know have been deported? Are you familiar with any of these people? Yeah. You probably are, and you may not even know about it. And it's not fair that this woman who has no record of working with any educational background is our UC president now. And the fact that she has the power to raise our tuition is another violation of our rights. Because education should be a free program or a free service for every 18-year-old and over, any student who lives on this nation. So if we want this entire university, all of the UCs, all of the schools in this nation to be free, again, as I said before, we already have the power. And I will bring up a quote recently. I came across a quote by Cesar Chavez, and he said that an organizer's purpose is to organize people who consider themselves as ordinary to do extraordinary things. Because people consider themselves to be ordinary. One of us consider ourselves to be ordinary. But when we unite, we have a strong voice. You have seen what people have done to gain labor rights, as with Cesar Chavez. I don't know how familiar you are with Latin America, but protests happen there every single year. Right now, there are a lot of protests happening in Venezuela because, again, they don't even have the basic rights of being protected from police brutality. They don't have basic rights for health. People are dying and they're killed by the police themselves who are supposed to be protecting them. Now, back to what we do if the tuition was raised, we would have massive protests. Yeah! Woo! Participate. Yeah! Woo!
And I want to remind all the candidates to go up and get your portrait taken after you finish. So I think the student advocate candidates who ought to do that, go up to wherever Michael is. He's outside, so go out the door and have your portrait taken. Thank you. And now we will move on to executive vice presidents candidates. So why don't you each introduce yourself and then we'll move on to the questions.
Hi everyone, my name is Justin Kong and I'm running for Executive Vice President with CalSER.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Yen. I'm a junior and I am a sociology major and a Spanish major running under the Defend Affirmative Action Party.
So the first question, and Jasmine, why don't you answer this one first? The role of the EVP is to foster the most productive environment in the ASUC Senate. Do you think that requires the EVP to act primarily as an unbiased moderator or as a partisan figure actively engaged in Senate discussion?
I think that, well, I actually don't need a mic.
Okay.
So I really think that one of our issues here is that we deserve public education, and currently we are not having that. This campus is becoming more privatized, especially because of Janet Napolitano, and that is wrong. We have a big California master plan, and we need to reinforce a real California master plan in order to have real freedom of speech for the students. So we need underrepresented minority group population here on campus.
Yes.
We face a lot of racism, a lot of sexism, a lot of segregation because of the power that the administration has over the students. That is wrong. The administration discourages a lot of students from really speaking out and saying their beliefs, saying their thoughts, and really living and really living up to that expectation, that legacy that Berkeley deserves.
Yes.
Currently, we only have 3% African American students, and we only have 11% Latinos. This has been going on for 15 years. That means that the admission process is rigged, and we cannot have a rigged system. We need a system that is going to be for the people and by the people. By that, I mean we need to mobilize, we need to organize.
Yes.
The administration has way too much power over the faculty. Faculty needs to stand by the side of the students, and they do. But the
Yes.
administration is taking away that power from our own faculty and taking away the power for the students. We as students gave the administration that power, and we as students can take it away as well. And so what we need to do is organize and lead the new civil rights movement and immigrant rights movement, because that is what Berkeley, that is what we are known for. So as students, we need to wake up from that dream that we've been constantly living. We need to wake up into reality, really mobilize, integrate, because we are segregated as students.
So the question is, the role of the EVP is to foster the most productive environment in the ASUC Senate. Do you think that requires the EVP to act primarily as an unbiased moderator or as a partisan figure actively engaged in Senate discussion?
Hi everyone, my name is Justin Kong and I'm running for Executive Vice President with CalServe. This year I believe that EVP Nolan Pack did a great job of making sure that the Senate floor moved in an efficient manner. That being said, I want to make sure that I foster an environment in the Senate space where students or senators are able to engage with each other and create a collaborative space. I want to push back on the idea that the Senate this year was a partisan space because of the number of bills we passed unanimously together as one Senate class. As the only candidate on the stage that has Senate experience and experience working on Finance Committee in which we were able to work across party lines and work together in distributing financial allocations to student groups together, I do believe that I know what is needed and not needed when divisive issues come up in Senate. Again, I want to make sure that the Senate space is one where the senators are able to dialogue with each other and learn about the different issues that impact their communities. As EVP, I want to proactively tackle the issue of divisiveness on the Senate floor by creating an opportunity for senators to actually learn about each other's issues before they even step on the Senate floor. As the only candidate on the stage who has Senate experience and experience working in Senate or participating in the Senate Leadership Institute, I wanted to make sure that senators are able to learn about the issues in Senate Leadership Institute. So that's my vision for the EVP.
And Justin, why don't you answer this question first? The question is, every student pays an annual fee to the ASUC, and then that funding is doled out to student groups on campus. How do you think the budgeting process can be improved?
As the only candidate on the stage that has Finance Committee experience, I know I have the qualifications to actually review the budget and make sure that we have a sustainable budget in order to support the student groups on this campus. As EVP, I not only want to review the budget and the stipends for the ASUC, but I want to prioritize vendor selection and maximize student voice in this process. Vendor selection will actually determine the future of a sustainable ASUC budget next year, and I want to make sure that during the process of vendor selection for the new echelon, that student voices are maximized. We saw in the old echelon when student voices were not heard that there was a huge turnaround rates for vendors in that space, and the ASUC was not generating enough revenue to be able to sustain itself. I want to hold online forums and student town halls as EVP in order to maximize the student voices, because ultimately these vendors are for the students on this campus, and the profit and revenue generated by the ASUC is determined by how much students buy into them. As EVP, I want to make sure that students not only know about this project, but make sure that communication on the project is also adequate enough for students to make an informed decision and able to voice their opinions accurately? Thank you.
You want me to repeat the question? So the question is, every student pays an annual fee to the ASUC, and that funding is then doled out to student groups on campus. How do you think the budgeting process can be improved?
So I really, I'm going to go back to the power that the administration has over this institution, and the administration hoards a lot of resources, they hoard a lot of wealth, and this is wrong. So although I may not have experience in the ASUC Senate, I do have experience marching with the students and being a part of student movements. I have marched in Washington, D.C. and led thousands of students in order to go fight and protest and lead these students to the U.S. Supreme Court to fight for defending affirmative action, political rights for minority groups, and immigrant rights groups. So I think that the problem is that we need to give more power to the students. So what I would do is I would organize the students, and what I would use space in Lower Sprawl Plaza in order to have an environment to organize students, to mobilize students, and allow them to see the power that they really, really have. Because we have a lot of power as students, and as all of us gathered and unified, we will be able to lower fee costs. We will be able to have more of a budget for student organizations, for groups, because there are a lot of students out here who don't have the endorsement, who don't have the resources to start certain student organizations that should be on campus. A lot of students feel isolated here. They feel discriminated against. They feel like they don't have a voice. So I think in order to solve this issue with like the budgets, we need to solve the issue that's going on with the students, and we need to mobilize. We really need to unite students. There's a lot of competition between one another, a lot of segregation, a lot of isolation. That needs to stop. We need to integrate with one another. Like I said, this is Berkeley, and Berkeley is not living up to its legacy, to its expectation. In order to change this system, the only way is to lead a civil rights movement, and the only movement that will win is the student movement. So I say we organize together, and we go, and we fight, and we take away that power that the administration has over us.
Thank you. And now we'll call up the presidential candidates. Why don't you all introduce yourselves to the crowd?
Hello everyone, my name is Naweed Mohammed and I'm running to be your next ASUC president with CalSER, Cal Students for an Equal Rights and a Balanced Education.
Hello everyone, my name is Pablo Padiarla and I'm running to be your next ASUC president with Student Action. As a third year pre-med student, I want to thank the Daily Cal and thank all of you here for giving me this opportunity.
I'm here to bring actual things to the Berkeley community, such as a winter formal with a 6,000-person cake, and
All right, this is just introductions.
a
You can
winter
go with that.
wonderland.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is David Douglas. I'm a national organizer with the Coalition to Defend Affirmative Action, Integration, Immigrant Rights, and Fight for Equality by any means necessary. I'm running to be ASUC president with the Defend Affirmative Action Party and fight to lead a massive student movement on this campus.
So there will be 4 questions this time. Why don't we start with Pavin? Why don't you answer the first one, and then Naweed will answer, and then David, and then Pierre. So the question is UC President Janet Napolitano doing a good job? What kind of relationship would you have with her if you are elected?
The issue of Janet Napolitano was a controversial one, and rightfully so. She has torn apart families not only on this campus, but across the state and all across the nation. And that's all the more imperative that we as students need to make sure we can hold her accountable. Now, in the last year alone, when she came to visit campus for the only time to meet with student leaders and meet with students to learn about their experiences, our current ASUC president handpicked 15 students to be in that meeting, all of which walked out within the first 30 minutes, ensuring the needs of a large majority of students were not heard. That doesn't sit right with me. As your ASUC president, I would make sure to ensure a lot more transparent process. If anyone was going to be in an administrative meeting, it would also be televised, and all students would be allowed to give their input through an online live web chat where they can be fielded and answered immediately. Moreover, as your ASUC president, I'm committed to increasing transparency, but we need to make sure that we can hold our administration accountable. And that starts by sitting across the table from them and making sure they listen to the needs of students. Now, one last thing I'd like to add is that there's no guarantee that a presidential candidate from the same party isn't going to do the exact same thing. And we need to make sure that we can use Janet Napolitano as a tool to serve students, not so that she can push forward her own agenda.
Woo! Do you want to repeat the question? Yeah.
Alright. Hello everyone. Once again, my name is Nawi Mohammed, and I'm running to be your next ASUC president and counselor. I want to take a second to really acknowledge the feelings that Janet Napolitano and her presidency has brought to students. She's brought a lot of unsettlement, and a lot of students feel unsafe. I think President Pipino has done a great job in the past year about actually critically engaging Napolitano, and that's something I actually plan on doing. I want to work with Napolitano in the capacities of Council of President and bridging the gap between Council of Presidents and the University of California Student Association in order to be able to keep her accountable. I'm the only candidate on the stage running on a platform of keeping administration accountable and doing that in an attainable way. I think it's important that we work together on certain issues like sexual assault, bringing these issues to the forefront, and creating and revisiting the new master plan. I understand that students are going to want me to keep her accountable. As your ASUC president, I will be held accountable every step of the way, and as your ASUC president, I think it's important that I be keeping Janet Napolitano accountable every step of the way as well. Thank you.
What do you want to respond to?
Because he said he's the only candidate on the stage running on a platform to hold administrators accountable.
Okay.
Hello everyone, my name is
Hold on. Who's running with this? 1 minute.
Am I good?
Yeah, you have 1 minute. You have 1 minute only to respond to that point.
Okay. I'd like to clarify some of the things about my second platform, which is related to increasing transparency. The parts that I outlined earlier were not only about increasing transparency about the ASUC, but ensuring that administrators and the promises that they make behind closed doors are available and accessible to all students. Because we need to be educated about these topics before we can hold them accountable. Now, not only is this one of my platforms, but in Senate, I've worked on 4 bills related to public education and how we, as students, need to reclaim public education in the state. And I'm the only candidate on the stage who's done that.
We also respond to that also.
Yeah. But it'll be in your 2 minutes.
Yeah. So 3 minutes.
No, you have 2 minutes.
But I'm responding to both.
But he had already spoken, so just put it in your 2 minutes. You don't need to have a rebuttal for that. Go back to 2.
It is an insult that the University of California Regents would appoint a mass supporter and an opportunist politician. I'm proud to say that I stand by the 2 million undocumented immigrants who were deported under Janet Napolitano's policies. Shipped back to poverty and despair. She is a mass supporter. She was former Secretary of Homeland Security that was originally set up to target Arab and Muslim Americans in this country. It's an insult that she would be appointed to represent the most important institutions of public higher education in the world. I proudly stand by the over 3,000 signatures that I have gathered on this campus demanding that she be removed from this university. Half of the people in this room have signed that petition. It's an insult. I'm proud to say that I'm the only candidate on the stage who's dedicated to fighting to remove Janet Napolitano from this university, fighting for full citizenship rights for all 11 million undocumented immigrants around this nation. This campus should be a sanctuary campus, so undocumented immigrants don't face threat of deportation or police harassment. Any other party who says they're going to work with Janet Napolitano has sold out. Sold out the student movement. Has sold out the immigrant rights movement. How dare you? We stand proudly on the immigrants yearning to breathe free, to open up a new period of progress in this society, fighting racism, fighting the sexual assault and rape on this campus.
Please wait to cheer until all the candidates have spoken.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm going to follow up on that, but I guess I'm at fault for trying to work with Janet Napolitano because I do think we need to work with her. I think it was shameful, honestly, when our current president, DJ Pepito, invited those 10 to 15 activists into the room and they not only walked out on her, they compared her to Hitler. They called her, actually they said she was almost worse than Hitler. They snapped their fingers in her face as they walked out. They stood up and laughed at her. I thought it was shameful, and she just sat there for 20 minutes, her arms crossed, just listening to them, as did Chancellor Nicholas Dirks. That's not how you have a conversation. I'm going to have much more transparency and communication with the administration. One thing we're going to do is that we're going to get a desk in California Hall so that I can talk to Nicholas Dirks every day. And we're going to be seated across from him, and we're going to work with him. And I'm going to ask, my chief of staff is personally going to ask for Janet Napolitano's personal cell phone number. And we're going to have a weekly phone call. And I'm not joking about this. So I think there needs to be more communication. I think she's pledged to support the students on issues such as tuition, and fighting against her is not going to accomplish anything, if at all.
All right, the second question, and for this one we'll go in the order of David, Pierre, Noid, Pavin. How have the campus and the UC responded to issues of sexual assault on campus? What, if anything, would you do to improve the ways incidents of sexual assault are dealt with? Who did I say first? David. Okay.
So once again, we're in the crisis to defend the right to public education for all, the right to full citizenship rights for all 11 million undocumented immigrants across the nation. This epidemic of rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment on this campus needs to be addressed collectively through the student movement, empowering the students. We hold the administration, the ASUC, the current ASUC complicit in covering up the incidents of rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment happening on this campus. We need to fight collectively, address the concerns of the survivor, see what her needs are, to address this issue and address it collectively as a student movement. 1 in 3 women are sexually assaulted, raped, or sexually harassed by the time they finish their 4-year college experience across this nation. This is a national epidemic. The reason why we're even having a discussion about this is because there have been brave women standing proudly, coming out publicly, standing up against this epidemic and demanding action. We have no illusions in the UC administration that they're going to address this issue. We need to address it collectively, as a student body, as a student movement. And we have no illusions that an administrator or the ASUC sending out an email is going to address this issue. We need to fight and empower students on this campus and address it collectively. And, you know, the racism and the segregation on this campus, the low number of Black, Latino, and Native American, other underrepresented minority students, fosters a hostile campus climate. We're putting the university on trial for these policies. We're already doing more than the current ASUC has done all year. Holding private meetings behind closed doors with Janet Napolitano, that's an insult. That's a sellout. You sold out the immigrant rights movement. How dare you?
Pierre?
Okay. Rape is a heinous crime, and it's something that's been tolerated under my administration. I believe it's a crime that needs to be handled by the police. We're going to set the path. We're going to continue DJ's work, send them a task force that's going to encourage survivors to report these crimes, and it's going to help expedite the process. But I don't think the ASUC should only focus on one or two issues. I think the ASUC should focus on multiple issues, and we're going to put forward a comprehensive campus safety plan that's going to tackle thefts, other violent assaults on campus, including sexual assault, as well as thefts and robberies throughout campus. A lot of the crime that happens on campus takes place in waves. So one thing I'm going to do is whenever there's a spike in campus a spike in crime on campus, such as muggings, we're going to have a surge of police force on campus, kind of like the one in Afghanistan 5 or 6 years ago. So we're not going to be easy on crime. We're going to have undercover officers. If someone is seeing someone stealing a bike, we're going to catch them, and we're not going to let them go.
Right. Do you want me to repeat the question? So the question is, how have the campus and the UC responded to issues of sexual assault on campus? What, if anything, would you do to improve the way incidents of sexual assault are dealt with?
Well, once again, my name is Naweed Mohabit, and I'm running to be your next ASUC president, CalCert. I really want to commend the work that ASUC President Pepito has done. I think the CalCert Consent Campaign and the work of ASUC Student Advocate Seminar, as well as ASUC President Pepito, and the report and recommendations that they made to ASUC President Jennifer Boltano, that's definitely brought a lot of changes to the system-wide way that we handle sexual assault. That being said, I want to say that I will continue the work that's being done on sexual assault. This issue is not over just because the president is turning over. I will continue the OP Sexual Assault Task Force. I will continue the Title IX Advisory and Compliance Committee. It's important that as the new Dean of Students is coming in, that students are being able to really express their concerns to them and being able to talk about that they're concerned if they don't feel safe on campus. Also, I want to include that this isn't an issue of just physicality. This is also a mental health issue. When 1 in 2 students during their time here are going to deal with mental health issues, we know we have a problem. We need to be able to increase resources at the Tang Center for survivors and really putting the focus on survivors and not the people who are doing the raping, but being able to really empower the survivors and make sure that they feel safe, that the process is focused on them, that they feel safe. And that's what the work I'll be doing as ASUC president. Thank you.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, could you?
Yeah. How have the campus and the UC responded to issues of sexual assault on campus? What, if anything, would you do to improve the way incidents of sexual assault are dealt with?
Sexual assault is an issue that has not only deeply and personally affected me, not only in my time here, but also before college. Now, we can't rest until there's no more cases of sexual assault on this campus. Currently, there's a critical capacity with Chancellor Dirks being very willing to work, and I also would like to commend President Pepito for her efforts in the past year. But we need to be able to synthesize and empower survivors' voices on this campus so that no one is able to feel excluded. No one should feel like their voice is being silenced. Currently, I would like to not only work with Chancellor Nicholas Dirks, but also put pressure on the UC Board of Regents so that they continue their work. After recently adopting a new implementation of new UC policy, there's 2 key ways that I would like to not only change the culture of UC Berkeley, but also the sexual assault prevention and resources on campus. Let's first talk about prevention and resources. My first platform is related to student life and safety, and as part of it, I'm creating a student safety task force. The main charge that I will be giving them is related to 2 things. First, disciplinary measures. No student on this campus who has been convicted of sexual assault should be allowed to graduate with a degree. The second is in terms of survivors. Survivors should not be kept in the dark for as long as months or even a year, just so they can hear back about their case. This is simply unacceptable, and we need to put pressure on the administration so that they listen to the voices and make them feel comfortable on this campus. Now, the last thing I'd like to say is I'd also like to continue the work of President Pepito in the Town Consent campaign. The one problem that I had with it was that it didn't reach out to as many communities as it could have. I would like to bring it to the Greek community specifically and expand a lot of those efforts so we can create a universal campus climate that is against sexual assault, and so that all students understand that sexual assault has no place on this campus.
So the third question, the order will be Noid, Pavin, Pierre, and David. Let's say that next year the Senate decides to reverse its stance on Israel divestment. Would you support or oppose them?
Can you repeat the question for a second?
Yeah. Let's say that next year the ASUC Senate decides to reverse its stance on Israel divestment. Would you support or oppose them?
I think it's important that we recognize that this divestment debate has brought a lot of campus divides on campus. This is an issue that a lot of people do have opinions on, and I think my role as ASUC president is to be able to represent all voices. That being said, I do come from the Middle Eastern Muslim South Asian Coalition here on campus, and we do have an opinion on it. For me, I do believe in divestment. I do believe that we can use nonviolent practices to be able to put pressure on states of all places who are committing human rights. I myself, I am pro-human rights, and I am peace, but that doesn't mean I can't support divestment. Would I support a reversal? I don't think I would. I think that the decision we have taken is really critical, and just like we took the decision on the South African apartheid years ago, which is what CalSERV was founded upon, I think that's really important in making progress. Divisiveness does not mean a stagnation of progress. And I think that this is a really important issue that we need to be talking about. This issue that needs to come up in every single community and what it means for us and what we're complicit in. And so just to sum it up, no, I don't think I'd be reversing my decision or agree with the reversal decision.
Do you want me to repeat the question? The question is, let's say that next year the ASUC Senate decides to reverse its stance on Israel divestment. Would you support or oppose them?
I'd like to begin by talking about my vision and my role as ASUC president. The president is not only the chief representative of the student body, but he's charged with making sure that all students feel safe on campus. Now, before we can talk about the issue specifically in Senate, we need to understand that there is going to be a lot of dialogue that happens beforehand. And as ASUC president, I would make sure that I'm not only coordinating with key community members on all issues of this, so I can be educated before the issue comes before Senate. That is very important because, as you know, this is an issue that's brought numerous campus climate problems. Now, if we can foster dialogue, that is what's most important to ensuring that all students and their voices are able to be heard. Now, in the last year when divestment came up, I had numerous friends who were not only at the meeting, but were emotionally invested in it. And they felt like their voices were not heard, and their voices were silenced by the Senate space. I would not support any bill that threatens the safety and well-being of any student of this campus. And that means that I would like to be charged and be part of every kind of discussion that happens beforehand. Now, campus climate is an increasing issue on this campus. And one thing that I want to do as ASUC president is create a community roundtable that brings together heads of different communities so they can voice their grievances in a real-time manner, so we can progressively and pragmatically help make sure that every student feels safe on campus. Thank you.
Do you want me to repeat the question? Let's say that next year the ASUC Senate decides to reverse its stance on Israel divestment. Would you support or oppose them?
Let's be clear. This whole discussion about divestment last year was not about whether we would divest. It was about writing a letter to the UCOP, telling them that we thought they should divest. It's frankly a waste of time spending, weeks where the Senate just meets and talks about an issue where frankly it's just a symbolic issue. I think so many of these questions have been pointed at questions that do not affect most of the students. I think there is a campus climate issue, and it's the lack of an undergraduate experience at Berkeley. So many students come to Berkeley, and they just feel like Berkeley citizens who live in Berkeley and who happen to take classes on campus. We need a winter formal here at Berkeley. We need a winter wonderland here at Berkeley. where was a huge holiday tree on Sproul and hot chocolate fountains and Ferris wheel and ice skating rink. We need a better active weekend. We need activities and events that will actually bring students of all coalitions and groups together on campus. Because right now, I don't feel as if I'm actually, I don't feel the Berkeley undergraduate experience. I just feel like someone who takes classes here.
You want me to repeat the question?
College campuses across the nation are addressing this issue. They're raising resolutions to demand the divestments from corporations who participate in the occupation of Palestinian territories. Israel is a neo-colonial settler state. It's an imperialist outpost for the Middle East to dominate that region. It's a part of U.S. imperialism. We need to build a student movement on this campus to reverse these issues, to empower the students, empower the immigrant rights movement, and stand with the Palestinian people's right to self-determination, and stand with the Palestinian struggle. The Arab nations need to discontinue from using the Palestinian question as a political football. If the Arab nations say they stand with Palestinians' right to self-determination, then they should arm the Palestinian people so they can create their own independent nation and stand up against the oppressive Israeli state. Janet Napolitano, former Secretary of Homeland Security, represent a continued connection to the university and the military-industrial complex. We need to build a movement on this campus to force out the military-industrial complex, to force out the IDF from cooperating with the University of California Police Department. We need to build a student movement on this campus that empowers Arab and Muslim students to stand up for their brothers and sisters across the Middle East. So we have these debates, we have these dialogues. Revolutions are happening all around the world. As a student movement, we need to be having critical debate and dialogue around these issues and fight collectively and stand with oppressed and exploited nations around the world.
So for the final question, the order will be Pierre, David, Pavin, and Naweed. The last question is, and it's kind of a long one. Over the past 2 days, thousands of UC workers have gone on strike, contending that their demands for smaller class sizes, better wages, and undocumented graduate student compensation have been met with intimidation from the UC. Do you support the strike? What do you think is the best solution to the issues that UC workers have brought up?
I'm not really here to talk about the strike today. I visited the strike. I sat there for 10 minutes, and frankly, I don't know enough about it. What I do know is that it's time for a winter formal at UC Berkeley, and that's something that will actually impact undergraduate UC Berkeley students. All of these questions have been about very specific policy issues that honestly 95% of Berkeley students are not going to hear about. Most Berkeley students don't even know what the Senate, ASUC Senate needs to talk about. Most Berkeley students, however, will hear about the winter formal, will participate in the winter wonderland, will enjoy having a cheese board pizzeria in Lower Sproul. They will enjoy having a halal cart on Memorial Day. These are things that Berkeley will actually care about. Just ask yourself, 10 years from now, are you going to remember all these things we're talking about here?
Yes.
Or are you going to remember? No.
All right, keep it down. Let him finish. Let him finish, please.
Well, I'm in a room full of ASUC insiders here, but let me tell you, most of the students outside of this room who came to Berkeley to have a good time, to study, and to partake in the undergraduate experience, what they will remember is, excuse me? What they will remember, yes, is the cake. They will remember their magical soiree at the winter formal in San Francisco City Hall. Just as many of you, well, I'm not sure about people in this room, but as many other students remember the fun times they had in high school at their proms or at their graduation after party. These are the things that students actually care about. And I'm sorry that I'm in a room full of ACC insiders and fat cats.
Okay, so the question was, over the past 2 days, thousands of UC workers have gone on strike, contending that their demands for smaller class sizes, better wages, and undocumented graduate student compensation have been met with intimidation from the UC. Do you support the strike? What do you think is the best solution to the issues that the UC workers have brought up?
I'm proud to say that our candidates, staff, and families stood proudly with the striking UAW graduate students and united behind their demands. We are in a crisis for public higher education in the state of California, the United States, and across the world. Less and less funding means higher tuition, more fees, because the student movement hasn't fought to win. We need to strike and continue to strike and shut down this campus to force a massive federal bailout and a state bailout to completely fund the California Master Plan. Chancellor Dirks has come in to privatize this university, continue to segregate it, which creates the hostile conditions on this campus. Stanford, UCLA, UC Berkeley just signed over research rights to the largest chemical corporation in the world. We need to build a student movement on this campus challenging for power to stop the privatization of public higher education in the state of California. We need to build a movement on this campus to force British Petroleum off this campus, because students come to this campus to change the world. Students come to this campus to research new technology, innovative ways to combat climate change, global warming. Nations across the world are already facing climate change, global warming. They're already facing the impacts. Why? Because the United States and Western Europe has embarked in a racist, imperialist policy to deny the right of self-determination for the majority of our exploited and oppressed brothers and sisters across the world. We need to build an anti-racist environmental movement in the United States to completely abolish the consumption and use of fossil fuels. British Petroleum just dumped petroleum in Lake Michigan. They destroyed the Gulf of Mexico. They have no right to be on this campus and inhibit the autonomous research rights of UC Berkeley students.
To repeat the question, over the past 2 days, thousands of UC workers have gone on strike, contending that their demands for smaller class sizes, better wages, and undocumented graduate student compensation have been met with intimidation from the UC. Do you support the strike? What do you think is the best solution to the issues UC workers have brought up?
Let me start off by saying intimidation in the face of negotiations is never acceptable. I fully stand with the UAW 265 and graduate student instructors who have gone on strike this week. Now, this isn't a strike that has come down to the last 2 days alone. It's been a problem that has been brewing for months, and I've been reaching out to graduate students to see what their side of the issue was and figure out how we can pragmatically address this issue. And I've come up with 2 ways that we can do this. My first goal is to improve academic collaboration by providing more online peer advising resources, so the burden of students doesn't fall solely on graduate students themselves. Secondly, this is an issue about public education and the character of our university on a broader scale. As your ASUC president, my goal would be to make education more available by creating a Politify type application that shows all students how their money is being used. The purpose of this is because once we're educated about where our money is going, then we can figure out how to better use it and combat disinvestment by the state. This problem is very interrelated with the way that graduate students have gone on strike, because unless the state is giving us more resources, we need to figure out how we pragmatically can reclaim the public character of this university. And it starts with education. It starts with us standing together as a united ASUC with all of its students, including graduate students. And as your ASUC president and one of the individuals up here who's not running with the slate and is running as truly independent, I've been working with all types of students, all types of communities around campus to make sure that my vision for the ASUC accurately reflects different communities on this campus. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. For those of you who forgot my name is Naweed. I do believe that the UAW definitely has a right to strike. I believe that it's time that the UC listens to the student workers and the educators that actually keep this university running. Fair labor practices and a living wage isn't that much to ask for. When you're using illegal intimidation tactics against union workers, it's actually a shame. I've been out there with the UAW protesters. I'm actually the only candidate on the stage who is endorsed by UAW. I have been trying to critically put pressure on this administration and the administration of the University of California to actually listen to student workers. It is time that the University of California actually engages with the student workers, that listen to them, and being able to listen to their demands, because honestly, their demands aren't that much. When we're denying these people their actual rights, what are we doing? Injustices here are actually injustices everywhere. I do believe that it is important that the ASUC president be able to amplify the voices of students, and students are included. When the ASUC has these students, it's the graduate students as well. I think that's an important part of our university, and I definitely want to be able to amplify their voices and bring them to the next level.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes the questions for the presidential candidates, as well as the forum. Thank you everyone for coming out today. I had a great time. Hope you did too.